Hello everyone and welcome to Shell Point Today for the weekend, February 26, 27, and 28. I'm Dan Filgreen. On today's show, we will hear more about the open house event at the Springs for the Waters Watch Community Launch. Also, we'll bring you the top stories from this week. But first, don't forget about Saturday's Life Quest discussion group. It will be about our natural environment. Being in, on, or near the water can have a significant effect on our overall well-being. Join Janine Hammond, Manager of Resident Support Services, and share your experiences and learn about the opportunities that abound in our beautiful corner of Southwest Florida. This Life Quest discussion group will meet in the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Looking ahead to Monday, you will have the opportunity to enjoy the music of pianist Frederick Moyer in the concert in the Grand Cypress Room at 10:30 a.m. Moyer has been a full-time concert pianist for 30 years, which has taken him to 43 countries and exciting venues such as the Sydney Opera House, Carnegie Recital Hall, and Windsor Castle. He's a member of the Jazz Arts Trio and has contributed to bringing American music to the classical music stage. No ticket or sign-up is required for this event, so come and enjoy his music on Monday morning. Later on Monday, after you enjoy this great piano concert, you can make the dinner outing to P.F. Chang's China Bistro in Estera. Court pickups begin on the island at 4 p.m. The cost of the trip is $8 with dinner on your own. P.F. Chang's features traditional Chinese as well as innovative dishes with the influence of Southeast Asia. There are gluten-free entrees and sauces on the menu as well, something for everyone. So make sure you're signed up for dinner at P.F. Chang's. And finally, if you'd rather stay home for dinner Monday night, then afterwards you can catch a great movie at the Social Center. It's the 1935 film Roman Holiday, starring Audrey Hepburn. She earned an Oscar for her portrayal of a modern-day princess rebelling against her royal obligations. While exploring Rome, she meets an American newspaperman, played by Gregory Peck, and they fall in love, of course. Don't miss this romantic comedy Monday night in the Social Center at 6:45. All residents are encouraged to enter the annual Shell Point Photo Contest and Show, which will be held March 28th through April 1st. If you have a photograph that you've taken in the last 2 years that you feel is show and contest worthy, then you can enter between now and Friday, March 4th. A list of rules and categories is available at both the Island and the Woodland service desks. If you were able to attend this year's gala event, you heard about the exciting expansion that is planned in the coming years here at Shell Point. The expansion starts at the location of the Springs Assisted Living Facility, and we want you to hear more about it firsthand at a special Springs Expansion and Waters Watch launch event, which happens on Thursday, March 3rd. Rita Southern, Director of Assisted Living, is standing by to tell us more about this event.
Hello, we're so excited about the Waters Watch neighborhood and what we're doing here at the Springs. We are inviting all of our Shell Point neighbors to come out on March 3rd to our Dive Into the Details open house. Our residents that are on the assisted living waitlist will be our VIP guests at the Dive Into the Details open house, where our Shell Point residents will have the opportunity to look at the Springs and enjoy all of the details of the enhancements that we have planned for the Springs. They'll be able to enjoy wonderful refreshments, entertainment, visiting with our experts that have been working with us side by side. The architects have been invited to join us. Our interior designers have been invited to join us. We're very excited to share so much more of those details about what we have planned in the way of our memory support program and our Memory Institute, as well as our 27 assisted living apartments that will be constructed here at the Springs. Our Springs residents are so looking forward to the recreation amenities that will be added to the Springs as well. Some of the other things that we're doing is combining our apartments and making some of the largest apartments that we're going to be having in assisted living. I'll bet you're excited to see that, and that's one of the things that you'll have a chance to look at our coming event on March 3rd. But maybe I can just give you just a little bit of a sneak preview into that. Safety first, let me put my hard hat on and let's go in. I'll bet we can get just a little bit of a sneak preview. So come on in, let's see what we can see.
Ho, ho, ho! You can't come in now. We still got work to do. Come back March 3rd. We'll be ready. Hope to see you.
It's easy to attend the Waters Watch neighborhood launch event entitled Diving into the Details on March 3rd. Court pickups will be provided for door-to-door transportation to and from the Springs, as space will not be available for individual parking. Look for more details in the March issue of Shell Point Life magazine, or contact McKenzie Millis at 600-6424. And now it's time to take a look at today's happenings, Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections.
Hello and welcome to the Happening segment, weekend edition of Shell Point TV. I'm Caitlin Vanscoy.
I'm Bev Chandley.
And we're going to give you all of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday's activities. I'm going to start with Friday. We start at 8 o'clock with men's match play tennis at the Woodlands Tennis Courts. And at 8:15, the Stamp Ministry will be gathering in the Stamp Room on the island. At 8:30, the Friday Marketplace will be here in the Administration Courtyard until 11:30. There is a trip heading to Naples for the annual Quilt Show. Pickups begin at 8:30 on the island, 8:40 Woodlands, and 8:50 Eagles Preserve and Estuary. You do need to sign up for that trip. Canasta and Samba will be held in the common second floor lobby of the Woodlands at 9 o'clock. And 9:15 is the time for the Pavilion Auxiliary Orientation in the Osprey Room on the island. That is sign-up required. Men's match play tennis will be at 10 o'clock at the Woodlands Tennis Courts. And Inquiring Minds will be in the Manatee Room at 10:15. We move to Friday afternoon for 12:30 Mixed Progressive Bridge in the Woodlands Game Room. And Zumba Fitness will be held in the Health Club at 12:45. This is session 4 of the Zumba series. At 1:15, Advanced Table Tennis will be in the Tarpon Room. And Quilters will be gathering in the Osprey Room at 1:15. The Model Train Room will be open from 1:30 to 3:30 for tours and viewing. And we have our Vespers in the Community Room of the Arbor at 1:30. 2 o'clock's the time for Big Euchre in the Woodlands Sable Room. And come out for water volleyball at 2:15 in the Life Quest Aquatic Center. Our second Vespers is in the Community Room of King's Crown at 2:30. And 3 o'clock's the time for ballroom line dancing in the Health Club. Our final Vespers of the day is held at the Springs at 3:30. And our Friday concludes with Resident Game Night at 6:45 in the Resident Activity Center. Here's Bev to tell you all about our Saturday.
Thank you, Caitlin. We have pickleball at 8 o'clock down at the game courts behind the Resident Activity Center. And we have round-robin doubles tennis at the Woodlands Tennis Courts at 8 o'clock. At 9:30, we have men's and women's doubles tennis at the Woodlands Tennis Courts. Duplicate bridge will be played in the Manatee Room at 9:45. And at 10 o'clock, we have the Life Quest group discussion. That'll be in the Grand Cypress Room at the Woodlands. At 10:15, the Model Yacht Club will be sailing their boats to the Garden Apartment Pond on the island. We're going to jump into the afternoon now with a 1 o'clock chess game at the Library Lounge at the Resident Activities Center. Table tennis will be set up in the Tarpon Room at 1:15 and available all weekend if you like. And at 3:15, we have basic line dancing in the Health Club. Now here's Caitlin. She's going to tell you about Sunday's activities.
Thank you, Bev. Sunday morning starts with Christian Life Studies at 9 o'clock, both in the game room of the Woodlands and the Village Church. At 10:15, morning worship will occur at the Village Church, and it's also broadcast live on Shell Point TV, Channel 13. At 3:30, we have the Sunday Golf Mixer held at the Shell Point Golf Club. And 4:15 is the time for a Latin-sized dance group that'll be in the Health Club. We round out our weekend and our Sunday with an evening service at the Village Church at 6:15. Well, we're so glad to see you here today. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Terry Coleth with your Academy information for Friday and the weekend. On Friday, February 26th at 10:15 in the morning, we have our free walk-in iPad iPhone clinic in the Technology Teaching Center on the island. And then at 2:30, the free walk-in clinic for the Macs is in the Technology Teaching Center on the island. All are welcome with your questions. I'd like to tell you what we have coming up next week in the Academy of Lifelong Learning. On Monday, we have Basic iPad with Bob Jakubiak of Lucina. On Tuesday, Coffee with a Neighbor, Antique Appraising with Judy Owen of Sand Dollar. And on Wednesday, the history of Shell Point with our own Shell Point president, who has lived so much of our community's history, Peter Dice. We also have experience in colored pencil painting, beginning with Karen Hubbard of Lakewood. On Thursday, Karen Hubbard and Sharon Terrestini, both of Lakewood, will teach painting with a palette knife. We'll also have an iPhone class, Basic Apps with Bruce Findlay of Sundial. Professor Adrian Kerr will begin a 3-session series on the story of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And then on Saturday, Professor Adrian Kerr will teach the history of Athens and the Parthenon.
Menus for your weekend. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter on Friday is linguine and clams with garlic bread and seasoned spinach. The dinner special is the seafood buffet for $17.95, and the soup of the day is lobster bisque. In the Island Cafe for lunch on Friday, the special is the Captain's Seafood Basket with fries and slaw for $7.75, and the dinner special is Chef's Choice for $8.75. Dinner specials in the Palm Grill on Friday are lamb chops for $22.95 or Florida grouper also for $22.95. Now on Saturday, the Crystal Room is closed. In the Island Cafe for lunch on Saturday, the special is a chili cheeseburger with fries for $7.75, and the dinner special is pork marsala with baked potatoes and mixed vegetables for $8.75. In the Palm Grill on Saturday, you can have prime rib for $20.95. On Sunday, the Crystal Room features its Sunday brunch for $17.50. In the Island Cafe for lunch on Sunday, the special is a grilled turkey, Swiss, and bacon panini with chips for $7.75, and the dinner special is Chef's Choice for $8.75. And the Palm Grill is closed on Sundays. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Welcome to the Village Church Connections. I'm Karen Solomon, Director of Church Operations, and I'm here today with Pastor David Pavey to talk about the weekend.
Good.
So David, what's coming up this weekend at the Village Church?
Well, we're working through a mission statement right now. And you can probably quote that for me.
I probably can. I believe that mission statement that Pastor Hawkins has been sharing with us is building a community of forgiveness, purpose, and hope in Jesus Christ.
That's great. And so now we're going through these different points one at a time. And on Sunday, we'll be looking at purpose, building a community of purpose. We're not just drifting. We're not just floating downstream, but we're people with a mission, with a purpose in life. So Pastor Andy will be exploring that, unpacking it, as we like to say. The choir will be singing music based on Psalm 8. The Mystery and the Glory of Your Name is the title. So we look forward to that. And this is a reminder that there's a great value in coming out and experiencing this in person when we can. We're so glad that a lot of our shut-ins can watch it on television. That is such a wonderful feature of living here at Shell Point. But when you can come out and actually be a part of it, enjoy the fellowship, the hugs, the handshakes, and hear the music and get the teaching, it's something that stays with you all week. So we're very privileged to be able to get out most of the time.
Well, and part of our purpose is probably to be in community, and it's hard to be in community if you don't spend time with other people, whether it's there at the church or, in the various communities in Shell Point.
And then Sunday evening, we'll be beginning a new series entitled The Names of God, the names of Jesus, actually. And Pastor Andy will be using the normal format for Sunday nights when he comes down to the floor and moves around. Very interactive and very informative. And it's always a very good time. And we're so happy that we can provide this service not only for those who come Sunday morning, but those who can't get there Sunday morning and those who go to their own churches Sunday morning off campus, where they don't have an evening service and they come and join us. And everybody is so welcome. We enjoy that. So that's what's on for the weekend.
Well, that's good to hear. And I believe there's a special guest or topic in the morning on Sunday as well with the Gideons.
Oh, exactly. Once a year, the Gideons come and make a presentation about the wonderful work they do placing Bibles in our community in the hotels and different places where they get permission to place the Word of God. And every year one of their representatives comes for a few minutes and shares the way God's used some of these Bibles in the lives of people. So that's always something we look forward to.
It's an interesting
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting story. Most people think of them as placing in the hotels, but they also provide for our veterans and in prisons, and it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say on an update.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the Village Church Connection. We look forward to seeing you Sunday morning, 10:15 at the Village Church.
And now let's take a look back at the top stories from earlier this week. On Monday, Terry Colath sat down with resident Judy Owen to talk about the Antiques Appraisal event coming March 1st and what to expect. We also gave you a brief overview of how Judy got into the antique business by showing you a segment from a story we did late last year on Shell Point TV.
Well, I guess it starts in Pennsylvania, the Allentown, Pennsylvania. We lived there for 10 years, and at that time, this goes back to the 60s, it was the finest place in America to purchase antiques. And it just so happened I lived there. And it also happened that we had an auction house on the corner. And every Friday night I would see cars parked there from all over the United States, the East Coast of course in particular. And finally we ventured in there, and my husband knew it was going to be a mistake, and indeed it was. And within a year I had filled a general store, and I had filled our 4-bedroom house, basement, and garage to the brim. So my folks were living in Traverse City, Michigan at the time, and they had a pottery studio and real estate office, which I quickly converted into an antique shop. We subsequently, in 1972, moved to Traverse City. I continued to run the shop there. And at some point, the antique appraiser in Traverse City decided he wanted to retire. And when he retired, the bank trust departments were left in a lurch. They had no idea what they were going to do for setting up trusts and so forth, and estate liquidations. So they came to me, and I was very, very new and very green. I said I'd be happy to do it. And I started out, and of course, first thing I did is start buying reference books. And I bought many, many, many reference books. Well, I try to stay out of the antique shops, that's number one. And before we moved here, we liquidated everything. And I was very, very fortunate because everything we had, of course, was antique, except for our leather furniture in the living room. Everything was antique. And I knew none of it was going to fit in here. And so we were fortunate enough to have actually found a dealer in northern Florida who happened to deal in exactly the same things that I had, which was primitive Americana. So what do I do here? Well, I've gotten into art, and that's another story, but I'm loving it here. Everything about it, I tell everybody that asks about it, it's summer camp for old people. It's just like when I went to camp. I'm surprised we're not sitting around making lariats to hang around our necks. So anyway, we love it.
Hello, I'm Terry Colath. I'm here today with Judy Owens of Sand Dollar, and we want to talk about a class she's doing, Coffee with a Neighbor, on antique appraising. Thank you for joining me, Judy.
You're very welcome.
I've loved reading about you and hearing about you in Shell Point Life and talking with you and hearing about your wonderful experiences in life with antiques and how you came to all of this. And so I thought how nice it would be if we came up with our own kind of antiques roadshow.
That's what we've got planned, Terry. We want this to be entertaining for everyone.
Well, there couldn't be a more fascinating place to do this. I mean, almost every home you go into has something that's an antique, a valuable, to the person antique.
That's right.
And how nice that we're going to be able to see these things in a PowerPoint presentation and hear you talk about them. Because you'd probably be the first person to tell us that all value isn't monetary, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So part of the good story is, why do you have this?
That's right.
And what does it mean to you? And it's just so interesting. And years ago, I worked in an antiques mall. And to just think of these items that have survived the test of time.
The history.
The history. What makes something an antique, Judy?
Well, according to the government, the federal government, it has to be 100 years old.
Ooh.
But we find that many collectibles that are much newer than that are bringing much higher prices than things that are certainly antique.
Mm-hmm. So there's value in being a collectible, what people want right now, and value in being something that has survived time.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I just can't even imagine how much fun it's going to be to look at these items. And I really want to thank you, not only for sharing your expertise with us, but you're going to a lot of work so that we can just look at a photograph of these items, going to actually take pictures of them. That's so generous. Thank you. Join us. Coffee with a Neighbor, Tuesday, March 1st.
On February 14th, a grand celebration was held here at the island at Shell Point, titled Friendship Day. The festivities began with a special service at the village church, followed by food and fun at the administrative courtyard, and a special dedication of the newly remodeled amphitheater, now named Friendship Point. To top off the day, a special concert was held with the notable bluegrass band called Mountain Faith. Here's a recap of that special day.
In a few years, hear him laugh. Don't it sound like a song? Stop and think about what you don't understand. Things like life and love and how the world began. The doctor can't explain it, but the cancer's gone. There is a God. There is a God. There is a God. How much proof do you need?
Last week we presented a story about residents Bro and DeDe Darcy and their recent trip to Windsor Castle in Great Britain. But it was more than just a trip to see how royalty lives. They were actually guests of the governor of the castle for a 2-night stay. It was an up-close and personal experience they will never forget. In fact, there was so much information that we brought you more of the story this week. Now sit back and relax and enjoy the entire story of the Darcy's trip to Windsor Castle.
I'm 86 years old. I retired 3-4 months ago. I was a stockbroker for 54 years. Merrill Lynch in Chicago for 20-some years, and then Edward Jones, Chicago and Fort Myers until last fall. And so I had a good life in that business. And sorry I quit, as a matter of fact. And that's really my background. And we're boaters down here.
We moved to Sanibel in '91, and my parents had a condo down there. So we were known as the squatters, because any vacation we would bring our 2 boys, who are 40 and 42 now, over to Sanibel. And Bro had some experience with the west coast of Florida. And we always told the kids, hey, when you go to college, we're moving down to Sanibel. But we moved down when they were a junior and senior in high school.
And the real reason we bought the apartment at Shell Point was I'm 19 years older than DeDe. And her mother ended up taking care of her father. Very difficult job. And I didn't want that to happen to DeDe. In '01, we were both living in Sanibel. And our next door neighbor told us he had a couple coming to stay in his house for a week. And they were from England. And because they didn't know anybody, and the neighbor was going to leave, he said, let's have a cocktail party for the neighborhood. And so we met the neighbor and his wife. I discovered pretty quickly that he was an admiral in the British Navy, and he was deputy commander of NATO, among other things. Yeah. Well, we went out every day with him and really had a good time and became pretty close to him. And after they left, we swapped Christmas cards from '02 on every year. And a letter came this spring. We had not seen him. A letter came this spring, said, you know, my husband has retired and he has been appointed the governor of Windsor Castle. That's a fantastic honor to be one of those, and it's a 5-year thing. Why don't you come visit us? And we said, yeah, we will do that one. And so we made arrangements to go visit them this past September. They have a place they live in the castle that it encompasses 2 towers, and then come between, that's their apartment. But they have 9 bedrooms.
Yeah, they have either 9 or 7. Bro and I are a little dicey on which one, but it makes no difference. And
huge.
They live, the Norman Tower are 2 towers connected by this kind of, it's a breezeway, but it was built in 1250, so it's very sturdy. And James's office, it's James and Nicola Perrone are the governor and his wife. And he is a sir and she is a lady. There are 500 people that actually live on the grounds of Windsor Castle. And James is theoretically in charge of all of them. They both have wonderful stories of, Queen Elizabeth must have a wicked sense of humor. And they know all of the royalty, and the royal family knows them. He had retired, and they were living up in Leicester. And he got a phone call from Queen Elizabeth saying, James, I have something I'd like to ask you, a favor. Would you be willing to be governor of Windsor Castle for 5 years? It's a 5-year term. And he was afraid that Nicola, after all these years of serving in the Navy and being shifted around from pillar and post, that Nicola was finally in her house in Leicester and that she didn't want to do it. So when he asked Nicola, she said, well, of course we must do it. What an opportunity. The castle was started in 1066 when William the Conqueror came over. And what he wanted to do, he wanted to have 12 castles, 1 day's horseback ride from London to set up a periphery for security and to repel any attacks that were coming. And when William the Conqueror had it, it was just a big mound hill. It was a wooden fort. And then it wasn't until the 1300s that Edward III built the big stone tower, which is pretty iconic of Windsor Castle. And then in George IV, in 1824 to sometime in the 30s, he was the one that built the very tippy top, and it has been unchanged since then. And
we had 75 steps from their living room to our bedroom. We were on the top floor. And the windows, when you're outside the grounds, look like they're about that wide. Well, they're not that wide, they're like that.
Yeah.
And the view is just spectacular from our bedroom on the top floor. The bedroom was probably 35-foot diameter, circular bedroom.
It was a circular bedroom because we were in the very top of the Norman Tower.
We have pictures of the toilet. The toilet up there has a wooden lid about that square, and you wonder, well, how do they, you can raise the lid and there's the seat. Yeah, how do they flush it?
There's
well,
no water in it or anything. It's just a porcelain bowl.
But when you pull a cord up, it's a flood. A flood goes down from that top to bottom. But it's, I don't know, how old is it?
I don't know. It looked like a very fancy outhouse. There are 40 military knights, and they live, the head of the military knights lives in St. Mary's Tower, which is across from St. George's Chapel. Well, because they were military and they didn't have enough to live on, so that they brought them in as this military knight. And then they were responsible for ushering anybody that came to Windsor, to showing them the sights and things, and that is still their job. And the few that we met have, again, these great senses of humor, because St. Mary's Tower is directly across from St. George's Chapel. And when you are a military knight, when you die, you are buried on the grounds of St. George's Chapel. And the one we met said, well, it's kind of nice every morning when I get up and look out the window, I get to see where I'm going to be buried. And, you know, it's just, and he was taking a group, he was going to be all day with them, the same group, and he was going to take them all around. And as a military knight, you can get into some places, as a military knight-led group, you can get into some parts that the normal tourists can't. But the changing of the guards, there are 5 different groups that perform. And they all look pretty much alike. But you've got the Coldstream Guards, the Grenadier Guards, the Scots, the Irish, and the Welsh. Well, how you can tell them apart, because the uniforms all look the same, is the Coldstream has pairs of buttons. So you have 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. The Grenadiers just have single buttons. The Scots have groups of 3 buttons. The Irish have 4 buttons, and the Welsh have 5 buttons. And then in their, their big hats, they have different colored plumes. So the Coldstream Guards are red plume on the right side. The Grenadiers are white on the left side. The Scots have no feathers, and they're also called hackles. The Irish has blue on the right side, and the Welsh have white and green on the left side. And Bro kind of got a kick out of it, because here we are with Nicola and their dog Lottie, who is a working spaniel. And way off in the distance are all the people that had come to see the changing the guards. And of course we were right there.
Everything is roped off that you're going to see, even out in the courtyard where the military are, where they do the changing of the guard. And the visitors are behind some barriers way off. We ignored all of that. We walked wherever we want. If there was a barrier chain, he picked it up and undid it. And we came in, and DeDe had to dodge one of the guards at the changing.
Mm-hmm. Nicola took us right to where it's happening. And of course I was there taking all these pictures and things like that. And there's a certain routine that they have to walk, a pattern. And I was taking pictures, and all of a sudden I realized, well, he's walking right towards me, and he was not going to change his path. So I quickly got out of the way. So we got there a day, had dinner, 2 nights, and then the second night, we had to leave the second night because there was an investiture on Thursday. And if you don't know what an investiture is, which we didn't really know, that's when the Queen or someone from the royal family stands and presents the Order of the British Empire, OBE. And so that is more of, that's when someone becomes a sir or a lady. And that is given to someone in the distinguished, more of the arts, charity, the social. It's not a military honor. It's more of a doing good for the empire. So this investiture was going to have Prince William. And he said, Prince William is very chatty, so we have no idea how long this ceremony is going to take. And that's why we needed to vacate the grounds, because they were having all of these people come in. And it is done in St. George's Chapel.
But when we finally left, we toured. We got a driver and we toured for 3 or 4 days. And the people we met a lot of people, but we never found anyone who even knew somebody who'd spent a night in the castle.
The most impressive thing, I mean, when we first got in there, and Nicola was in the car with us, and she drove us up to their door, and it has on the brass plate, Governor. Just seeing this Norman gate and these two great big huge Norman towers that again were built in 1200, it was just, we got to thinking, we kind of rolled our eyes with each other and thought, well, what are we to expect? So that's impressive. And then of course the iconic round tower. The second night we were there, we went to Evensong in St. George's Chapel. When we got in there, it's a long one aisle room, and then there's one on each side. There's one bank of chairs, and then there's another, and then there's another. Well, the Knights of the Garter were established in, I think it was the 1200s. It was by Edward III. And there are only 26 Knights of the Garter ever at any one time. So each of these very narrow chairs at the very back row is assigned to a Knight of the Garter. And each time a new knight comes in, and it's only by death that they can come in, they have to choose their own banner, their own logo, everything. So where James and Nicola have reserved seats, we sat right next to them. And when we walked in, all the way up to the ceiling are these little brass plates of who has sat in this particular chair for all of these years. The whole service, Evensong service, was my most memorable moment because it was just so glorious. So it was just amazing. And when you walked in to this aisle, you walked over where Henry VIII is buried. There are 10 monarchs buried at St. George's Chapel and Jane Seymour, and over the years. That is the Queen's favorite residence because when she's working, she has to be in London. But when she
was not there when we were there?
No, she was at Balmoral. And when she's working on the weekends, she comes to Windsor because that's her favorite castle. And she spent a lot of time with her sister and her parents there. So, and we have a picture of where she lives. And then we have, with us standing in front of it with James and Nicola. So we have a picture of that. And it's just, she rides almost every day when she's there. And the area where she rides is only private. You have to be a royal or invited to go there.
It's a different place.
The years that all of this has been going on was another thing that just boggles your mind. Being Americans, where 200 years old is old. This is the picture of the Norman Gate and Norman Tower. And this is, the left-hand tower is where we stayed. The right-hand tower was James and Nicholas. And then this breezeway, the connecting part of the building is called the Fortescue Room. And the reason it's called the Fortescue Room is that during the Civil War, which is when the parliamentarians or Cromwell's forces were battling King Charles I royalists, there was an Edmund Fortescue was held prisoner here for a little about a year or so, and he got bored. So he took a knife or something and he carved in the stone wall of this room Edmund Fortescue, 1642, Vive le Roi. And that is behind a piece of plexiglass. It's on the lintel of a fireplace. It's behind a piece of plexiglass. But this window is the window where James, when he's at his desk, looks out. And behind the window, there's a piece of glass, but you can see where the big iron gate would come down to keep out the enemy. And this is the slit. And these round holes are where they would throw boiling oil or human waste, anything to deter an attack. And you can see that, I mean, James just looks right out. He looks over that. This part of the tower is also part of his office. And the tiles, again, date back to like 1270. And I said, do you want us to take our shoes off? She says, no, that's all right. You're here.
Well, I got more of an understanding of the royalty, which I had no idea about when I went there, other than what I'd probably seen in movies. And everybody around there was so nice. They really were. Nobody was big shot, haughty, and I would like to go back.
They all have great sense of humor. They all know everybody. They are just, again, ordinary is not the right word, but they're just extraordinarily ordinary. How's that? And the name of my little book was An Undreamt Dream Comes True, because it was like a dream.
Dotty Morrison of the Photo Club hosted another Gallery Glimpses segment this week. This time she introduced local photographer John Hutson, who is featuring his works of scenery and wildlife at the gallery.
Hi, I'm Dotty Morrison. Welcome to the Photo Gallery and Studio, where I'm here for another segment of Gallery Glimpses. Come on in. I want to introduce you to our guest artist, John Hutson. Hi, John.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. Why don't you have a seat?
Thank you.
So, John, where do you live?
I live in LaBelle, Florida.
All right. And do you have your photos hanging in a gallery there?
We have, Arts of the Inland has a gallery, an art gallery, and I have, it's been open since April, and I've exhibited my photos there consistently since that time.
Aside from the gallery in LaBelle, do you exhibit anywhere else?
I have occasionally put photos at Punta Gorda, the Visual Arts Center, Naples Arts Center, the Art Council of Southwest Florida, which is in Estero.
Right.
And that's it, I guess.
All right. Well, we're so glad that you found us on the internet through the Alliance for the Arts and saw our invitation, because we really like to have the opportunity to have people who aren't Shell Point residents exhibit here. We are proud of the fact that we have this wonderful gallery, and this way Shell Point residents and visitors can see your work without going all the way to LaBelle. It's great. So tell me, how long? Yeah. How long have you been a photographer?
I dabbled with it years and years ago, and probably didn't get too serious about it until 2006 after I retired.
Okay.
And I've been doing it pretty much as a hobby ever since.
I see. And you sell your photography?
I do. I go to different arts and craft shows.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've noticed in looking at your pictures, and we're just going to give a glimpse today, that your work ranges from very realistic to a very unique style that I really appreciate. So we want to talk about some of your pictures. And the first one I want to talk about is this picture. I see water and I see rocks. What am I looking at here?
This is Crater Lake in Oregon, in central part of Oregon, state of Oregon. This is an old tree that I've been there 3 or 4 times, and each time the tree loses a few limbs, so it's interesting to see how that is deteriorating. But it's a very, very gorgeous lake. The water is really crystal clear and it's deep blue.
Wow. So this is one of your more realistic pictures. I want to talk about a picture that I noticed of pelicans, but you've done something very unique to them. So John, I saw this picture of pelicans and cormorants. I'm a birder, so I always notice birds. And it's very realistic, maybe taking it ding, dig, darling?
Exactly.
Okay. And then I saw this one. What have you done to the pelicans?
Well, in Photoshop, I use Photoshop a lot on some of the ones that you can tell that they've been altered. In Photoshop, there's a couple of settings that you can click on and get different effects. It's sort of a posterization effect.
Yes.
And there's a lot of opportunities to make that different colors and work with it.
I love what it's done to the blues. The texture of the water is amazing. There's just something about it that makes me look at the birds in a different way.
Yeah, it's almost like a neon effect.
Exactly, exactly. All right, and then I want to come to the big one at the end of the gallery back here. John, I wanted to ask you about this. It almost looks like a painting to me. It's just such beautiful color and texture. Tell me about this picture.
Well, this was just, I think they're called African lilies, in somebody's garden that I took a picture of, and duplicated the original picture and used a chrome effect in Photoshop and then blended the two together to get kind of a painterly effect.
It almost feels like it's done on glass with water. It feels like I should be able to touch it and there's water there. That's incredible. Well, I'm so glad that your work is here, and I know that our residents are going to want to come. We've only given you a glimpse. He has a lot of pictures here. He told me about boats that he's taking pictures of. He's taken pictures of other landscapes, and you'll want to come down and see. We are open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to noon, and we're in the tunnel behind the stamp room, and we would love to have you come down sometime between now and the end of March and see John's work. And thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
And finally, resident Paul Neighbors returned this week to talk about more computer clinics with Terry Kolath. In the Resident Computer Center at the Woodlands, you can get computer help every morning at the walk-in clinic. In addition, they are now offering help to our Shell Point artists who are taking part in next year's Ageless Creativity exhibit. Paul Neighbors and his team are ready to assist you with the online application process. Here's the interview with Paul and Terry.
Hello, I'm Terry Kolath, and I'm here today with Paul Neighbors of Rosemont. We're talking about something new that just might be right for you. Thanks for joining me, Paul.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to talk about something you've created, walk-in computer clinics. But before we do that, I want to refer back to something that I find to be very interesting, and that is how you got involved with computers. And it was back in the days of the fighter pilots. Tell us what happened.
Well, I was a fighter pilot in the early 50s, and IBM and MIT were developing computers to control the planes to shoot down Russian bombers that we thought were going to come over and bomb us then. The very few fighter pilots were willing to allow a computer to fly their plane for them. But my interest in computers convinced me that that was something I wanted to do. So I spent a while working with that computer system, and then from there I went on to graduate school and did a lot more study, and then spent another 50 years working with them, and have enjoyed every minute of it and still enjoy every minute of it here.
So you absolutely flew by computer alone. You were one of the first. That just boggles my mind, Paul. Well, one of the things I find to be so wonderful about you is that you know not everybody is as comfortable with computers as you are.
Right.
And that has led you to do something that I think is so wonderful, you and your team of instructors. Every single morning in the Woodlands Resident Computer Center now, you can come in and be helped with your computer. Tell us about that.
Well, I started working on this for a good while ago, and finally, with Terry's help, was able to get things set up. So from 10 to 12 every morning during the week, I will be there, and I'll have at least one other instructor with me. And any problem that you have, I've talked to a lot of people here who don't get into a lot of things they'd like to do on their computer because of problems that they're having right now. Sure. The thing that we'd like to do is that with the walk-in clinic, you can walk in there and take as much time as we need to go through whatever your problem is, to understand why you got into the problem and how to avoid you getting into the problem in the future.
And how to get them out of the problem.
How to get out of the problem. And so once we do that, then that means that opens you up to do all the other things that you've always wanted to do that you were afraid to do.
And what's wonderful about this, Paul, is it's one-on-one help.
Right.
It's not hoping that the class talks about the issue you're having, right?
This is all one-on-one. When you walk in, there's no limitation the amount of time we'll spend with you, no limitation how many times you can come in. As long as you're making progress, we'll sit there and work with you until you can do anything that you would like to do on your computer.
And so a number of our computer college instructors have made this commitment, one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday, and you on Friday. Right. But you've also made the commitment to be there every day.
I'm there every day, right.
Every single morning somebody can come in. Now the list of specific helpers, you're there for as a generalist, but there's somebody who looks at specific aspects of the computer. That list is available at either service desk.
Right.
For those who are interested.
We have the schedule there for right now. That may change as time goes on. And if you find that there's anything that you're interested in doing, no matter what it is, I've got a lot of resources I can call on to do things. And so if you want to do something that your first visit there doesn't cover what you'd like to do, I'll get the resources to do it and invite you back in for another time when I can have the resources we need to get into whatever it is you want to do.
The beauty of this is what we're noticing across the spectrum with technology. People are more interested now in how do I do it rather than why do I do it, right? And to be able to have that one-on-one assistance with someone who loves computers, it's just fabulous.
I enjoy it very much. I've always enjoyed teaching and helping people learn to use computers, and I enjoy it every day here.
That's fabulous. Now, another thing you've agreed to do, which we're delighted about, is to help our artists who are interested in joining the Ageless Creativity exhibit.
Right.
There's an application process, and some of it is quite technical. So you've also said that you're available to be contacted any morning in the Woodlands Computer Center to help people with that technical aspect of their application for Ageless Creativity.
Sure. If we need to take pictures for you or scan things, get them into the documents you need to do and get them set up so that you can transmit them, be glad to do whatever we can to help get that done.
Paul, thank you so much. And thank you to the team you've assembled in the Computer Center at the Woodlands. Now, I'd like to just say that we have the afternoon hours available for one-on-one, and we have a wonderful core of resident volunteers available daily in the Island Resident Computer Center down in the tunnel where you can just go in and do your own thing. But if you want to focus on a specific aspect of an issue you're having or something you want to learn with your computer, there's that free walk-in clinic in the mornings at the Woodlands.
Right.
Thank you. Well, I think you'll probably want to take advantage of some time or just stop in and say hi to these very generous people who are sharing their knowledge and their love for computers with us. And if you're thinking of an application for Ageless Creativity, Paul Neighbors is here to help you standing by. Thank you.
And that's going to bring this weekend edition of Shell Point Today to a close for February 26, 27, and 28. I'm Dan Philgreen, hoping that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And we'll see you back here again on Monday.